The Diamond Sutra, translated by Lapis Lazuli Texts and read by Angus Cargill. Section 1. The Cause of the Dharma Assembly. Thus have I heard. At one time the Buddha was in Shravasti, residing in the Jeta Grove in Anatta Pindika's park, along with a great Samga gathering of bhikshus, monks, 1,250 in all. At mealtime, the Bhagavan, Holy One, the Buddha, put on his robe, picked up his bowl, and made his way into the great city of Shravasti to beg for food within the city walls. After he had finished begging sequentially from door to door, he returned and ate his meal. Then he put away his robe and bowl, washed his feet, arranged his seat, and sat down. Section 2. Elder Subhuti opens the question. From the midst of the great multitude, Elder Subhuti then arose from his seat, bared his right shoulder, and knelt with his right knee to the ground. With his hands joined together in respect, he addressed the Buddha, saying, "How extraordinary, Bhagavan, is the manner in which the Tathagata, thus gone, the Buddha, is skillfully mindful of the bodhisattvas, sages, and skillfully instructs and cares for the bodhisattvas. Bhagavan, when good men and good women wish to develop the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, how should their minds dwell? How should they pacify their minds?" The Buddha replied, "Excellent, excellent, Subhuti, for it is just as you have said. The Tathagata is skillfully mindful of the bodhisattvas and skillfully instructs and cares for the bodhisattvas. Now listen carefully, because your question will be answered. Good men and good women who wish to develop the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi should dwell thusly, and should pacify their minds thusly. Just so, Bhagavan, we are joyfully wishing to hear it." Section 3. The True Way of the Great Vehicle. The Buddha told Subhuti, "Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, great and holy sages, should pacify their minds thusly. All different types of sentient beings, whether born from eggs, born from wombs, born from moisture, or born from transformation, having form or no form, having thought, no thought, or neither thought nor no thought, will cause them all to become liberated and enter remainderless nirvana. Thusly, sentient beings are liberated without measure, without number, and to no end. However, truly no sentient beings obtain liberation. Why? Subhuti, if a bodhisattva has a notion of a self, a notion of a person, a notion of a being, or a notion of a life, he is not a bodhisattva. The wondrous practice of non-abiding. Moreover, Subhuti, bodhisattvas should not abide in dharmas, rules, when practicing giving. This is called giving without abiding in form. This giving does not abide in sounds, scents, tastes, sensations, or dharmas. Subhuti, bodhisattvas should practice giving thusly, not abiding in characteristics. Why? If bodhisattvas do not abide in characteristics in their practice of giving, then the merits, greatness of this are inconceivable in measure. Subhuti, what do you think? Is the space to the east conceivable in measure? Certainly not, Bhagavan. Subhuti, what do you think? Is the space to the south, west, north, the four intermediary directions, or the zenith or nadir, conceivable in measure? Certainly not, Bhagavan. Subhuti, for bodhisattvas who do not abide when practicing giving, the merits are also such as this, inconceivable in measure. Subhuti, bodhisattvas should only dwell in what is taught thusly. Section 5. The Principle for True Perception. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be perceived by means of bodily marks? Certainly not, Bhagavan. The Tathagata cannot be perceived by the means of the bodily marks. Why? The bodily marks that the Tathagata speaks of are not bodily marks. The Buddha told Subhuti, everything that has marks is deceptive and false. If all marks are not seen as marks, then this is perceiving the Tathagata. Section 6. The Rarity of True Belief. Subhuti addressed the Buddha, saying, Bhagavan, will there be sentient beings who are able to hear these words thusly, giving rise to true belief? The Buddha told to Subhuti, do not speak that way. After the extinction of the Tathagata, in the next 500 years, there will be those who maintain the precepts and cultivate merit, who will be able to hear these words and give rise to a mind of belief. Such beings have not just planted good roots with one Buddha, or with 2 Buddhas, or with 3, 4, or 5 Buddhas. They have already planted good roots with measureless millions of Buddhas to be able to hear these words and give rise to even a single thought of clean, clear belief. Subhuti, the Tathagata in each case knows this, and in each case perceives this, and those sentient beings thus attain immeasurable merit. Why? This is because these beings are holding no further notions of a self, notions of a person, notions of a being, or notions of a life. They are holding no notions of dharmas, i.e., not blindly following laid rules, and no notions of non-dharmas. Why? If the minds of sentient beings grasp after appearances, then this is attachment to a self, a person, a being, and a life. If they grasp after notions of dharmas, that is certainly attachment to a self, a person, a being, and a life. Why? When one grasps at non-dharmas, then that is immediate attachment to a self, a person, a being, and a life. Therefore, you should neither grasp at dharmas, nor should you grasp at non-dharmas. Regarding this principle, the Tathagata frequently says, you bhikshus should know that the dharma I speak is like a raft. Even dharmas should be relinquished, so how much more so the non-dharmas? Section 7. No obtaining, no expounding. Subhuti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata obtained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi? Is there any Dharma the Tathagata has spoken? Subhuti replied, thus do I explain the true meaning of the Buddha's teachings. There is no fixed Dharma of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, nor is there a fixed Dharma the Tathagata can speak. Why? The Tathagata's exposition of the Dharma, teaching, can never be grasped or spoken, being neither Dharma nor non-Dharma, being neither a fixed rule nor license. What is it then? All the noble ones are distinguished by the unconditioned Dharma. Section 8. Emerging from the Dharma. Subhuti, what do you think? If someone filled the 3,000 great thousand worlds with the 7 precious jewels in the practice of giving, would such a person obtain many merits? Subhuti replied, very many, Bhagavan. Why? Such merits do not have the nature of merits, and for this reason the Tathagata speaks of many merits. If a person accepts and maintains even as little as a 4-line gatha from within this sutra, speaking it to others, then his or her merits will be even greater. Why? Subhuti, this is because all Buddhas, as well as the Dhammas of the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi of the Buddhas, emerge from this sutra. Subhuti, what is called the Buddha Dhamma is not a Buddha Dhamma. Section 9. The appearance without appearance. Subhuti, what do you think? Does a Srotapanna have the thought, I have obtained the fruit of a Srotapanna? Subhuti replied, no, Bhagavan. Why? Srotapanna refers to one who has entered the stream, yet there is nothing entered into. There is no entry into forms, sounds, scents, tastes, sensations, or dhammas. Thus is one called a Srotapanna. Subhuti, what do you think? Does a Sakradhamin have the thought, I have obtained the fruit of a Sakradhamin? Subhuti replied, no, Bhagavan. Why? Sakradagamin refers to one who will return once more, yet there is nothing which leaves or returns. Thus is one called a Sakradagamin. Subhuti, what do you think? Does an Anagamin have the thought, I have obtained the fruit of an Anagamin? Subhuti replied, no, Bhagavan. Why? Anagamin refers to one who will not return, yet there is nothing non-returning. Thus is one called an Anagamin. Subhuti, what do you think? Does an Arhat have the thought, I have obtained the fruit of an Arhat? Subhuti replied, no, Bhagavan. Why? There is truly no Dharma which may be called an Arhat. Bhagavan, if an Arhat has the thought, I have attained the Arhat path, then this is a person attached to a self, a person, a being, and a life. Bhagavan, the Buddha says that among Arhats, I am the foremost in my practice of the samadhi of non-contention, and am the foremost free of desire. However, Bhagavan, I do not have the thought, I am an Arhat free of desire. If I were thinking this way, then the Bhagavan would not speak of Subhuti, the one who dwells in peace. It is because there is truly nothing dwelled in that he speaks of Subhuti, the one who dwells in peace. Section 10. The adornment of pure lands. The Buddha addressed Subhuti, saying, what do you think? In the past, when the Tathagata was with Dipankara Buddha, was there any Dharma obtained? No, Bhagavan. When the Tathagata was with Dipankara Buddha, there was truly no Dharma obtained. Subhuti, what do you think? Do bodhisattvas adorn Buddha lands? No, Bhagavan. Why? The adornments of Buddha lands are not adornments, and are thus called adornments. Therefore, Subhuti, bodhisattva mahasattvas should thusly give rise to a clear and pure mind, a mind not associated with abiding in form, a mind not associated with abiding in sounds, scents, tastes, sensations, or dharmas, a mind not abiding in life. Subhuti, suppose a person had a body like Mount Sumeru, king of mountains. Would this body be great? Subhuti replied, "It would be extremely great, Bhagavan." Why? The teacher teaches that no body is the great body. Section 11. Unconditioned merits surpass all. Subhuti, suppose each sand grain in the Ganges River contained its own Ganges River. What do you think? Would there be many grains of sand of the Ganges River? Subhuti said, "There would be extremely many, Bhagavan. The number of Ganges rivers alone would be countless, let alone their grains of sand." Subhuti, I will now tell you a truth. If a good man or good woman filled such a number of 3,000 great thousand worlds with the 7 precious jewels in the practice of giving, would he or she obtain many merits? Subhuti said, "Extremely many, Bhagavan." The Buddha told Subhuti, "Just so. If good men and good women accept and maintain even a 4-line gata from within this sutra, speaking it to others, then the merits of this surpass the former merits." Section 12. Venerating the True Teachings. Moreover, Subhuti, if one speaks even a 4-line gata from within this sutra, you should understand that this place is like the shrine of a Buddha. In every world, the devas, nobles or holy people, humans and asuras, outcasts or base people, should provide offerings to it. How much more so for those capable of accepting and maintaining the entire sutra? Subhuti, you should know that this is a person with the highest and most exceptional Dharma. Wherever this sutra dwells is the Buddha or an honored disciple. Section 13. Receiving and maintaining the Dharma. Subhuti asked the Buddha, "Bhagavan, by what name should we revere and maintain this sutra?" The Buddha told Subhuti, "This sutta is called the Vajracchedikā Prajñāpāramitā, and by this name you should revere and maintain it." Why is it called this? Subhuti, this Prajñāpāramitā spoken by the Buddha is not a perfection of prajna. Subhuti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata actually spoken any Dharma? Subhuti replied, "Bhagavan, the Tathagata has not spoken." Subhuti, what do you think? Are there very many atoms contained in the 3,000 great thousand worlds? Subhuti replied, "There are extremely many, Bhagavan." Subhuti, the atoms spoken of by the Tathagata are not atoms, and are thus called atoms. The worlds spoken of by the Tathagata are not worlds, and are thus called worlds. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen by means of the 32 marks? No, Bhagavan. The Tathagata cannot be seen by means of the 32 marks. Why? The 32 marks that the Tathagata speaks of are not marks, and are thus called the 32 marks. Subhuti, suppose there were a good man or good woman who, in the practice of giving, gave his or her body away as many times as there are sand grains in the Ganges River. If there are people who accept and maintain even a 4-line gata from within this sutra, then the merits of this are far greater. Section 14. Leaving Appearances. Nirvana. At that time, Subhuti, hearing this sutra being spoken, had a profound understanding of its essential meaning, and burst into tears. He then addressed the Buddha, saying, "How exceptional, Bhagavan, is the Buddha who thus speaks this profound sutra. Since attaining the eye of prajna, I have never heard such a sutra. Bhagavan, if there are again people who are able to hear this sutra thusly, with a mind of clean and clear belief, giving rise to the true appearance, then this is a person with the most extraordinary merits. Bhagavan, the true appearance is not an appearance, and for this reason the Tathagata speaks of a true appearance. Bhagavan, being able to hear this sutra thusly, I do not find it difficult to believe, understand, accept and maintain it. However, in the next era, 500 years from now, if there are sentient beings who are able to hear this sutra and believe, understand, accept and maintain it, then they will be most extraordinary. Why? This is because such a person has no notions of a self, notions of a person, notions of a being, or notions of a life. Why? The appearance of a self is not a true appearance. Appearances of a person, a being, and a life are also not true appearances. Those who have departed from all appearances are called Buddhas. The Buddha told Subhuti, thusly, if there are again people who are able to hear this sutra and are not startled, terrified, or fearful, know that the existence of such a person is extremely rare. Why? Subhuti, this foremost paramita that the Tathagata speaks of is not a foremost paramita, and is thus called the foremost paramita. Subhuti, the paramita of forbearance that the Tathagata speaks of is not a paramita of forbearance. Why? Subhuti, this is like in the past when my body was cut apart by the Kali Raja. There were no notions of a self, notions of a person, notions of a being, or notions of a life. In the past, when I was being hacked limb from limb, if there were notions of a self, notions of a person, notions of a being, or notions of a life, then I would have responded with hatred and anger. Remember also that I was the rishi, sage of forbearance, for 500 lifetimes in the past. Over so many lifetimes there were no notions of a self, notions of a person, notions of a being, or notions of a life. Therefore, Subhuti, bodhisattvas should depart from all appearances in order to develop the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. They should give rise to a mind which does not dwell in form. They should give rise to a mind which does not dwell in sounds, scents, tastes, sensations, or dharmas. They should give rise to a mind which does not dwell. If anything dwells in the mind, one should not dwell in it. And for this reason the Buddha says that the minds of bodhisattvas should not dwell in form when practicing giving. Subhuti, bodhisattvas should give thusly because it benefits all sentient beings. The Tathagata teaches that all characteristics are not characteristics, and all sentient beings are not sentient beings. Subhuti, the Tathagata is one who speaks what is true, one who speaks what is real, one who speaks what is thus, and is not a deceiver or one who speaks to the contrary. Subhuti, the Dharma teachings attained by the Tathagata is neither substantial nor void. Subhuti, if the mind of a bodhisattva dwells in dharmas, rules, when practicing giving, then this is like a person in darkness who was unable to see anything. However, if the mind of a bodhisattva does not dwell in dharmas when practicing giving, then this is like a person who is able to see, for whom sunlight clearly illuminates the perception of various forms. Subhuti, in the next era, if there are good men or good women capable of accepting, maintaining, studying and reciting this sutra, then the Tathagata, by means of his Buddha wisdom, enlightenment, is always aware of them and always sees them. These people all obtain immeasurable, limitless merit. Section 15. The merits of maintaining this sutra. Subhuti, suppose there were a good man or a good woman who, in the morning, gave his or her body away as many times as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River. In the middle of the day, this person would also give his or her body away as many times as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River. Then in the evening, this person would also give his or her body away as many times as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River. Suppose this giving continued for incalculable billions of eons. If there are people again who hear this sutra with a mind of belief, without doubt, then the merits of these people surpass the former merits. How much more so for those who write, accept, maintain, study, recite, and explain it. Subhuti, to summarize, this sutra has inconceivable, immeasurable, limitless merit. The Tathagata speaks it to send forth those in the great vehicle, to send forth those in the supreme vehicle. If there are people who are able to accept, maintain, study, recite, and explain this sutra to others, then the Tathagata is always aware of them and always sees them. Thusly, these people are carrying the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi of the Tathagata. Why? Subhuti, those who are happy with lesser teachings, are attached to views of a self, views of a person, views of a being, and views of a life. They cannot hear, accept, maintain, study, recite, and explain it to others. Subhuti, in every place where this sutra exists, the devas, humans, and asuras from every world should provide offerings. This place is a shrine to which everyone should respectfully make obeisance and circumambulate, adorning its resting place with flowers and incense. Section 16. Able to purify obstructions. Moreover, Subhuti, suppose good men and good women accept, maintain, study, and recite this sutra. If they are treated badly due to karma from a previous life that would make them fall onto evil paths, then from this treatment by others, their karma from previous lives will be eliminated in this lifetime, and they will attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, I remember in the past, innumerable, incalculable eons before Dipankara Buddha, being able to meet 84,000 countless myriads of Buddhas and providing offerings to honor them all without exception. Suppose someone in the next era is able to accept, maintain, study, and recite this sutra. The merits of my offerings to all those Buddhas are, in comparison to the merits of this person, not even 1/100th as good. They are so vastly inferior that a comparison cannot be made. Subhuti, if there are good men and good women in the next era who accept, maintain, study, and recite this sutra, and I were to fully explain all the merits attained, the minds of those listening could go mad with confusion, full of doubt and disbelief. Subhuti, understand that just as the meaning of this sutra is inconceivable, its rewards of karma, good deeds, are also inconceivable. Section 17. Ultimately without self. At that time, Subhuti addressed the Buddha, saying, Bhagavan, when good men and good women develop the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, how should their minds dwell? How should they pacify their minds? The Buddha told Subhuti, good men and good women develop Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi by giving rise to a mind thusly. I will liberate all sentient beings. Yet when all sentient beings have been liberated, then truly not even a single sentient being has been liberated. Why? Subhuti, a bodhisattva who has a notion of a self, a notion of a person, a notion of a being, or a notion of a life, is not a bodhisattva. Why is this so? Subhuti, there is actually no dharma of one who develops Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. What do you think? When the Tathagata was with Dipankara Buddha, was there any dharma of the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi? No, Bhagavan, and thus do I explain the actual meaning of the Buddha's teachings. When the Buddha was with Dipankara Buddha, there was truly no dharma of the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. The Buddha said, Thusly, Subhuti, there was no dharma of the Tathagata's attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, if there were a dharma of the Tathagata's attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, then Dipankara Buddha would not have given me the prediction, in the next era you will become a Buddha named Shakyamuni. It is because there was no dharma of the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi that Dipankara Buddha gave me this prediction by saying, in the next era you will become a Buddha named Shakyamuni. Why? Tathagata denotes the suchness of dharmas. Subhuti, if someone says, the Tathagata has attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, there is no dharma of a Buddha's attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, true attainment by the Tathagata of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is neither substantial nor void, and for this reason the Tathagata says, all dharmas are the Buddha Dharma. Subhuti, all dharmas spoken of are actually not all dharmas, and are thus called all dharmas. Subhuti, this is like the body of a person that is tall and great. Subhuti said, Bhagavan, the body of a person that the Tathagata speaks of, tall and great, is not a great body, and is thus called the great body. Subhuti, for bodhisattvas it is also such as this. If someone says, I will liberate and cross over innumerable sentient beings, then this is not one to be called a bodhisattva. Why? Subhuti, truly there is no dharma of a bodhisattva, and for this reason the Buddha says, all dharmas are not a self, a person, a being, or a life. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva says, I am adorning Buddha lands, then this is not one to be called a bodhisattva. Why? the adornments of Buddha lands spoken of by the Tathagata are not adornments, and are thus called adornments. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva has penetrating realization that dharmas are without self, then the Tathagata says, this is a true bodhisattva. Section 18. Of a single, unified perception. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata have the physical eye? Thusly, Bhagavan, the Tathagata has the physical eye. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata have the divine eye? Thusly, Bhagavan, the Tathagata has the divine eye. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata have the prajna eye? Thusly, Bhagavan, the Tathagata has the prajna eye. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata have the dharma eye? Thusly, Bhagavan, the Tathagata has the dharma eye. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata have the Buddha eye? Thusly, Bhagavan, the Tathagata has the Buddha eye. Subhuti, what do you think? Regarding the sand grains of the Ganges River, does the Buddha speak of these grains of sand? Thusly, Bhagavan, the Tathagata speaks of these grains of sand. If there were as many Ganges rivers as there are sand grains in the Ganges River, and there were such Buddha world realms as there were sand grains in all those Ganges rivers, would their number be very many? It would be extremely many, Bhagavan. The Buddha told Subhuti, such a number of lands possess a multitude of sentient beings, and their minds are fully known by the Tathagata. Why? The minds that the Tathagata speaks of are not minds, and are thus called minds. Why is this so? Subhuti, past mind cannot be grasped, present mind cannot be grasped, and future mind cannot be grasped. Section 19. Pervading the Dharma realm. Subhuti, what do you think? If someone filled 3,000 great thousand worlds with the 7 precious jewels and gave them away in the practice of giving, would this person obtain many merits from such causes and conditions? Thusly, Bhagavan, from such causes and conditions, the merits of this person would be extremely many. Subhuti, if such merits truly existed, then the Tathagata would not say that many merits that are obtained. It is from the merits that are unconditioned that the Tathagata speaks of obtaining many merits. Section 20. Leaving form, leaving appearance. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen by means of the perfected body of form? No, Bhagavan, the Tathagata cannot be seen by means of the perfected body of form. Why? The perfected body of form that the Tathagata speaks of is itself not a perfected body of form, and is thus called the perfected body of form. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen by the perfection of all marks? No, Bhagavan, the Tathagata cannot be seen by the perfection of all marks. Why? The perfection of all marks that the Tathagata speaks of is itself not a perfection, and is thus called the perfection of marks. Section 21. No speaking, no Dharma to speak. Subhuti, do not say that it occurs to the Tathagata, I have a spoken Dharma, do not compose this thought. Why? If someone says the Tathagata has a spoken Dharma, then this is like slandering the Buddha, because my teachings have not been understood. Subhuti, one who speaks the Dharma is unable to speak any Dharma, and it is thus called speaking the Dharma. At that time, living wisdom Subhuti addressed the Buddha, saying, Bhagavan, will there be sentient beings in the next era who will hear this spoken Dharma and give rise to a mind of belief? The Buddha replied, Subhuti, there will be neither sentient beings nor will there not be sentient beings. Why? Subhuti, the sentient beings that the Tathagata speaks of are not sentient beings, and are thus called sentient beings. Section 22. No dharmas may be grasped. Subhuti asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, is the Buddha's attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi actually without attainment? Thusly, Subhuti, with regard to my Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, there is not even the slightest dharma of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi which may be grasped. Section 23. The virtuous practice of a pure mind. Moreover, Subhuti, the equality of dharmas that has nothing that is better or worse is called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, and by means of no self, no person, no being and no life, all pure dharmas are cultivated and Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is attained. Subhuti, these pure dharmas that the Tathagata speaks of are not pure dharmas, and are thus called pure dharmas. Section 24. The merits of prajna are incomparable. Subhuti, suppose 3,000 great thousand worlds all contain Sumeru, king of mountains, and there were mountains such as this of the 7 precious jewels, given away by someone in the practice of giving. If a person has only a 4-line gatha from this Prajñāpāramitā Sūtra, and accepts, maintains, studies, recites, and speaks it for others, then the merits of the other person are not even 1/100th as good. They are so vastly inferior that the two are incomparable. Section 25. Transformations are not transformations. Subhuti, what do you think? You should not say that it occurs to the Tathagata, I will cross over sentient beings. Subhuti, do not compose this thought. Why? Truly, there are no sentient beings crossed over by the Tathagata. If there were sentient beings crossed over by the Tathagata, then there would be a self, a person, a being, and a life. The existence of a self that the Tathagata speaks of is not the existence of a self, but ordinary people believe it is a self. Subhuti, an ordinary person that the Tathagata speaks of is not an ordinary person. Section 26. The Dharmakaya is without appearance. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be observed by means of the 32 marks? Subhuti replied, Thusly. With the 32 marks the Tathagata is to be observed. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if the Tathagata could be observed by means of the 32 marks, then a Chakravartin king would be a Tathagata. Subhuti addressed the Buddha, saying, Bhagavan, thus do I explain the meaning of what the Buddha has said. One should not observe the Tathagata by means of the 32 marks. At that time the Bhagavan spoke a gatha, saying, "If one perceives me in forms, if one listens for me in sounds, this person practices a deviant path and cannot see the Tathagata." Section 27. No severing, no annihilation. Subhuti, suppose you think the Tathagata has not, from the perfection of characteristics, attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, do not compose the thought, the Tathagata has not, from the perfection of characteristics, attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, composing this thought, the one who is developing the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is then speaking of the severance and annihilation of dharmas. Do not compose this thought. Why? One who is developing the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi does not speak of a characteristic of the severance and annihilation of dharmas. Section 28. Not receiving, not desiring. Subhuti, suppose a bodhisattva in the practice of giving filled as many world realms with the 7 precious jewels as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River. If there is a person with the awareness that all dharmas are without self and accomplishes their complete endurance, then this is superior, and the merits attained by this bodhisattva surpass those of the previous bodhisattva. Subhuti, the reason for this is that bodhisattvas do not receive merit. Subhuti addressed the Buddha, saying, "Bhagavan, why do you say that bodhisattvas do not receive merit?" Subhuti, for bodhisattvas to make merit, they should not greedily wish to acquire it, and therefore it is said that there is no merit received. Section 29. Power and position destroyed in silence. Subhuti, if someone says that the Tathagata comes, goes, sits, or lies down, then this person does not understand the meaning of my teachings. Why? The Tathagata is one who neither comes nor goes anywhere, and for this reason is called the Tathagata. Section 30. The principle of the unity of appearances. Subhuti, if a good man or good woman disintegrated 3,000 great thousand worlds into atoms, would these atoms be very many in number? They would be extremely many, Bhagavan. Why? If this multitude of atoms truly existed, then the Buddha would not speak of a multitude of atoms. Yet the Buddha does speak of a multitude of atoms, and therefore the multitude of atoms spoken of by the Buddha is not a multitude of atoms, and is thus called a multitude of atoms. Bhagavan, the 3,000 great thousand worlds that the Tathagata speaks of are not worlds, and are thus called worlds. Why? The existence of these worlds is like a single unified appearance. Why? The unified appearance that the Tathagata speaks of is not a unified appearance, and is thus called the unified appearance. Subhuti, one who is of the unified characteristic is unable to speak it, and yet ordinary people greedily wish to acquire it. Section 31. Unborn knowing and perceiving. Subhuti, suppose a person says, "The Buddha teaches views of a self, a person, a being, and a life." Subhuti, what do you think? Does this person understand the meaning of my teachings? No, Bhagavan, this person does not understand the meaning of the Tathagata's teachings. Why? The views of a self, a person, a being and a life that the Bhagavan speaks of are not views of a self, a person, a being, or a life, and are thus called the views of a self, a person, a being, and a life. Subhuti, regarding all dharmas, one who is developing the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi should thusly know, thusly see, and thusly believe, not giving rise to notions of dharmas. Subhuti, the true characteristic of dharmas is not a characteristic of dharmas, and is thus called the characteristic of dharmas. Section 32. Transforming the Unreal. Subhuti, suppose someone filled immeasurable, innumerable worlds with the 7 precious jewels, and then gave these away in the practice of giving. If a good man or good woman develops the mind of a bodhisattva and maintains this sutra, even with as little as a 4-line gata, and accepts, maintains, studies, recites, and explains it to others, then the merits of this surpass the others. How should one explain it? Without grasping at characteristics, in unmoving suchness. For what reason? All conditioned dharmas are like dreams. All conditioned dharmas are like dreams, illusions, bubbles or shadows, like drops of dew or like flashes of lightning. Thusly should they be contemplated. After the Buddha had spoken this sutra, then Elder Subhuti, along with all the bhikshus, bhikshunis, nuns, upasakas, upasikas, and the devas, humans and asuras from every world, heard what the Buddha had said. With great bliss, they believed, accepted, and reverently practiced in accordance.